Hey, Shalom Akim, Shalom, Shalom, all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth, and salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquatham and listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I kind of wanted to read through this article that came out in regards to Generation Z or Z. And it says here over 4 million Gen Zers are jobless, and experts blame colleges for worthless degrees and a system of broken promises for rising number needs. Right, so here is just going into an outline of how a lot of these people buying into the American dream and realizing it's actually not working out for them. They thought that when they go through this path, we go to college, go to university, and after get our nice pretty much good job and so on and so forth, right? They're realizing all this is pretty much a scam, right? So I'm just going to read a little bit of the article here, and Lord's will, as always, this lesson may be edifying, right? So I'm just going to jump around, because the article is quite long. But here it says that there has been a mass derailment when it comes to Gen Z about their careers. About a quarter of the young people are now deemed NEETs, meaning they are no longer in education, employment, or training, while some Gen Zers may fail into this category because they are taking care of a family member. Many have become frozen out of increasingly tough job market where white collar jobs are becoming seemingly out of reach, right? So that's pretty much the dream, to get a white collar job. And a lot of these positions are now, with all these different rise of different companies that are developing different AI tools, we're also starting to see that a lot of these jobs are going to become obsolete. It's like, for example, when the scriptures talk about the grinding shall cease, there's a pretty much going to be a scaling back of certain jobs, and certain jobs are going to get cut, right? So they're no longer going to be needed because they're being phased out. So it's a lot easier to actually have a software perform a different task rather than having a human to do it, right? So here it says, in the US, this translates to an estimated over 4.3 million young people not in work or school. Across the pond in the UK, the situation is only getting worse, with the number of NEET young people rising by over 100,000 in the last year alone. A British podcaster went so far as to call the situation a catastrophe and cast a broad stroke blame on the education system. In many cases, young people have been set off to universities for your worthless degrees, which have produced nothing for them at all. And that includes your Israelites too, because with our people, our people have essentially, when it comes to like the tribes, especially in the islands, we really pride ourselves when it comes to higher education, higher learning, right? Because then it seems like you're so-called getting ahead, right? You seem like you're actually trying to come into you're given essentially the other nations competition, right? But you Israelites are very, very far behind. They pride themselves in so-called black excellence and so on and so forth. Really and truly, you still have to go to the enemy for want of all things, right? So that's another example of the curses, and you can't circumvent the curses. So as a matter of fact, let me get a precept since it mentioned worthless degrees, right? Because a lot of these schools, they charge X amount of dollars for tuition and textbooks and meal plans and so on and so forth, and you realize it doesn't actually satiate you, and that includes you Israelites, right? Because when you look at the state of our people, they look to these things as essentially something to kind of quench their thirst, to be able to satiate them, to make them feel as a more of a productive member, of the society where they are. So this is Isaiah 55 verse 1, and it says, hold, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, he come ye and buy and eat. Yea, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Verse 2, and it says, wherefore do ye spend money for that which is not bread? And your labor which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness, right? So, you know, our people go to, these places, and they spend, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, these different institutions, Yale, the most prestigious institutions, and it doesn't satiate you. It doesn't give you an understanding of who you are. It doesn't give you an understanding of your heritage. It doesn't give you an understanding of when you go through, troublesome moments, fiery trials. It doesn't give you understanding of even history, proper history, right? And that's why when you see the our apostles and prophets and elders and bishops, going fervently teaching on the highways and byways, that's where you're really going to find true wisdom, because you're not going to find true wisdom in these schools, right? So why are you going to these institutions to think that you're going to achieve some sort of understanding, so to speak? All you're really going to get, if I'm just being going to completely honest, what you're really gonna get is a bunch of serpent's philosophies, if I'm being completely honest with you, right? Speaking from experience, right? You're gonna get a bunch of feminism. There is this feminist studies. There is they teach free will. They teach equality, and all of those things are biblical. All of that is nonsense, right? The scriptures say that the wisdom of this world is foolish, right? So as a matter of fact, let me get that. What's that? First Corinthians. Then I'll go back to the article. Just bear with me. Okay, this is First Corinthians 3 verse 19, and it says, for the wisdom of this world is foolishness with the Most High, for it is written, he taketh the wise in his own craftiness, right? So the wisdom of this world is foolish, right? It's based, right? And our people, they marinate. They go to these institutions and they marinate in the serpent's philosophies, right? And they don't know anything else what is actually taught to them. They don't actually know anything about themselves. So let me continue on a little bit here. Where was I? Just bear with me. Okay, it says here, in many cases, young people have been sent off to universities for worthless degrees, which have produced nothing for them at all. The political commentator and journalist and author Peter Hitchens, it says, slammed colleges last week, and they would be much better off if they apprenticed to plumbers or electricians, and they would be able to look forward to a more abundant and satisfying life, right? And that's part of the system too, when you really think about it, because this system is not about trying to educate people and actually have them to be poets and thinkers and people who are essentially going to kind of challenge the status quo. The objective is really to just dumb the people down. I remember reading this one article in regards to I forgot the guy's name. I think his name was Horace Mann, and he went to Prussia, and he was studying different teaching techniques. And one of the things that he observed and he brought back to America was the fact that it was their system at that time was designed to actually make people more docile. It wasn't really and it wasn't about making people encouraging them to be more I don't want to say the word rebellious, but it wasn't about encouraging people to and aspiring them to, challenge, what is being taught to them. It was about actually just making, following the rules. You essentially, you go to school, you raise your hand when it's time to, you go to recess, you go to lunch when it's time to, right? It's a system that promotes a very rigid kind of understanding, and it's just about keeping, the children obedient. Essentially what it's doing is to create a nation of workers rather than thinkers. That's why the scriptures talk about gross darkness to people, because the education system is really just designed to keep and dumb you people down. It's not actually teaching you anything. It's not actually teaching you about proper history, you know. Um, Let me continue on here. It says, there is no question that the certain fields of study provide a more direct line to a long lasting career. For example, the healthcare industry in the US alone, over a million net new jobs are expected to be created in the next decade, among health aides, registered nurses, and nurse practitioners. Okay, let me go down here. It is critical that young people are empowered to be more informed consumers about their education, equipped with the information that they need to weigh the cost, quality, and long-term value of every path available to them. It says, that's an excellent point, because, our people, they go into these institutions and they don't actually, they kind of just forced to, because Jake doesn't have, essentially, Jake has just pretty much has forgotten the resting place, right? If they had just come back to Yahweh Bashim Shai, and that puts you up on, not just understanding your heritage, but understanding how the earth, as a whole works, how the things work, right? You understand, and it broadens your understanding. It's not just about, okay, knowing that you're an Israelite. You get an understanding how, how herbs work. You can understand about how the body works. You understand the importance of fasting. You understand the importance of or even character too. Character of how to treat your parents, how to treat, your brethren, how to, how to deal with, how to, walk uprightly with a sense of morals and integrity, right? So you get a whole different plethora of different avenues of information on how to actually apply into your life, right? Regardless of where, you probably go to work, right? So, it's a system that's designed to just keep you in blinders and keep you in a rigid way of thinking, rather than actually broadening your understanding, right? Let me go to, before I continue, let me go to the book of Proverbs. Because that's really where you're just going to find real, true, wisdom. You're not going to find it in these different, school systems, man. This is Proverbs 1 verse 20, and it says, wisdom crieth without, and she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates of the city, in the city, excuse me, and she uttereth her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge, right? So when people see us, especially our people specifically, they more delight in scorning. They don't delight in the trying to, get understanding. The scriptures say that with all that get understanding. But when they see us, we look rough. Our speech is not clean cut. We're not very eloquent speakers. We don't maybe not have a big vocabulary. We're dressed in sackcloth. We're in a symbol of mourning. We're in the house of mourning, I should say. All these different plethora of different factors. Jake doesn't actually consider the message, what is being said, rather than they're more to scrutinize the messenger rather than taking in the message, what is actually being said, right? And if I'm being completely honest, I've learned a lot more being on the highways and byways as opposed to these different schools, because these different schools is not going to teach you anything of substance, right? um, Let me go back to the article here. Somebody said universities are deliberately setting students up to fail, but the system is failing to deliver on its illicit promise, right? And that's all, that's all planned anyway. It's not about, and a lot of these school systems is another thing too. I would have noticed a lot of these school systems are being funded by the elites, right? So they push what they want you to know. They don't push um, an understanding of the scriptures, for example. As a matter of fact, there was a I forgot who it was. As a matter of fact, let me look it up. There was a president that said a thorough understanding of the scriptures is more valuable than a college. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. I think it was FDR. Was it FDR? Bible. Just bear with me. Let me see if I can find this. Oh, okay. It was Theodore Roosevelt. He said, a thorough knowledge of the Bible is worth more than a college education. And this was a president that said this, right? So, you Israelites, you going to these different schools in 2025, you're just being simple. That's really just simple. You're spending a whole bunch of money, that could be used to, do something more productively, or even use it. You can even use that to store spiritual riches if you know about, if you're spiritual, right? You can, take that money and use it towards something more beneficial. But, our people going into these schools is a complete waste of fucking time, to excuse my French, right? You're better off, having some kind of trade knowledge, right? As a matter of fact, like, Yahushua was a carpenter. Hold on, hold on. And that's another thing also. In this society, there's a people tend to look down on, the blue collar workers. What is that? Hold on. This is Matthew chapter 4, verse 18, and it says, and Yahushua, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. Right? So I'm reading this to show you, in the ancient world, you had men who essentially were, they were more equipped with their hands. They did more blue collar work. They were very, very what's it called? They were very, very skilled with their hands, right? And that type of work is very, very looked down upon in this society, And then when people really consider and think about trying to get their university degrees and all that kind of stuff, especially a lot of these women, it's mostly a lot of these women that attend these schools, one of the things that they want is one of those white collar jobs where you're in your nice AC, your chair has a cup holder, your desk probably goes up and down and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? I'm being a little facetious, but the point is still there. Like there is a disdain for those kinds of jobs. The fishermen, your cobblers, your bricklayers, your stonemasons. These people are very, very important. Garbage collectors, like these people are very, very, electricians, gardeners. I'm just kind of rambling off a few, but these people are very, very important into making the society running, to keep things, the society functioning, right? So you're starting to see that, when Trump kicked out a lot of those Israelites, and he sent them back to the to their respective countries, and now there's no one to actually till the soil and farm the land and so on and so forth, right? So you start to see how important those jobs are and how people are affected when people are not doing those jobs, right? A couple years ago in Canada, you had the Freedom Convoy with the truckers. Like, those jobs are still very important, right? Those jobs are not very and highly sought after and valued in this society, right? Especially, for example, like women, they want those cushiony AC types of jobs, and they look down on a lot of men who do those not white collar, excuse me, the blue collar work, the trades, working with your hands, so on and so forth, right? They look down on that. But okay, let me go to Sirach. Okay, this is Sirach chapter 39, verse 1, and it says, "But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High Yahweh Bashemel Shai, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out wisdom of all the ancient, and be occupied in prophecies," right? So that's another thing you're not going to get. You're not going to get understanding of prophecies, within these different institutions. You're not going to get the wisdom of the ancient, in these different institutions. And, from speaking from experience, the furthest they'll go back is when they talk about the Greeks. They don't go anything further than that, right? It's to essentially to solidify Esau's, quote unquote accomplishments, and learning about him and him only, and he was everybody. You don't learn about, like, when you come into understanding of knowing you're an Israelite, you learn about the different nations and which nations, had certain things in their kingdoms, in their respective kingdoms, right? That's what, that's the essence of Daniel, the 7th chapter. You learn about the different beasts that Jake went into, that Jake was captivity into, and you learn about what happened, the nature of what happened, and their interactions thereof in those different captivities. The Bible doesn't shy away from recognizing that the heathens had different empires that existed, right? But they all had their time to rule, and they all had their time where they all fell. That's the conclusion, right? No, that's why the scriptures say that none shall want her mate, because the Bible is not a book that can be compared to any of these different quote unquote holy texts, so on and so forth, right? You're going to get wisdom of the ancient, you're going to get wisdom of your forefathers, the plants, the herbs, all these different things, the understanding of the law and how important the laws are, right? This is verse 2, and it says, "And he will keep the sayings of renowned men, and where subtle parables are, he will be there also. He will seek out the secrets of grave sentences, and be conversant in dark parables. He shall serve among great men, and appear before princes. And he will travel through strange countries, for he hath tried the good and evil among men. And he will and he will give his heart to resort early to the Lord that made him." And that's another thing too. They're not teaching you Israelites that. They're not teaching you Israelites to actually come back to the Lord and try and encourage you to repent. They're not teaching you these things. They're teaching you to essentially adopt a Roman way of thinking. Put on that Roman garment. And become a Roman. Celebrate all these different Roman customs, because that's what you really get when you go to these different schools anyway. You get all these different Roman, Greco-Roman practices, hazing and all that kind of stuff, all that type of behavior, revelry, sexual immorality and all that. That's the lifestyle that is perpetuated in a lot of these different schools. It doesn't actually tell you to, come out of her, my people, and be separate, be holy, right? You're not going to get that kind of understanding in these different schools. Okay, verse 6, and it says, and when the great Lord will, he will be filled with the spirit of understanding, and shall pour out wise sentences and give thanks to the Lord in his prayer, right? So I guess I'll leave it there, but hopefully, this video was edifying. I just kind of want to touch on this because, a lot of these students, another thing also, if I may make this last point as well in regards to, these, AI and the rise of AI and so on and so forth. A lot of these, this new technology is making a lot of, these people lazy, right? So AI pretty much what a lot of students will do, they will take all this information and push it into AI, and rather than actually filtering it. So these different schools don't push a sentiment of actually another sentiment of work ethic, essentially going out, acquiring the research yourself, right? Pretty much kind of like how a gardener would, have a tool, right? Like a shovel damn, I forgot what that or a pitchfork or something like that. Not a pitchfork, but you know what I'm talking about, right? And he takes the garden tool and he breaks up the soil, right? It doesn't promote a sentiment to actually, be a laborious worker, right? In these different institutions, it's kind of just, AI pretty much kind of just dumbs these people down, right? Because they're so used and so comfortable for having things just done for them, right? As opposed to when you're in the truth, you kind of have to go out and have that Berean spirit, go and, search the scriptures and, get your own understanding, right? So you can be persuaded in your own mind, right? So, anyways, I guess I'll leave that last point there. But Lord's will, as always, this was edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Shai. Until next time, I say Shalom.